Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Stay Positive Podcast, episode 55 on this lovely March? Yes, March day. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete. By the way, it's episode 56.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone and everything in between, welcome to episode 56 of the Stay Positive Podcast. I'm Alex.
We're not redoing this, dude.
No, we're not.
You're hilarious.
I corrected myself. What? I'm honest with our fans.
Okay. Anyways, so the topic of the day, Web3.
That's scary, Pete. That's the unknown. We don't know much about that.
Nobody knows anything about Web3, and I full disclosure, know absolutely nothing about Web3 except what I've read. I've been inside the forest. I've dug deep into the jungle, but this is like trying to say that you knew what the internet was in the 80s, because
which was nothing.
Nobody really knows what this can be or what it will be. It's all speculation right now, so all I can talk about is what I've learned and where I think things could go.
So Can you give a brief summary? What's Web 2? Is that just what the internet is right now?
Basically.
Okay.
Everything that we know about the internet in its current form is Web 2.
So social media, advertisements everywhere, Amazon and Google.
Yeah. The way I like to think about it is incentive structures. So Web 1 was a decentralized access to information, which is, quite frankly, that's how the internet works, right?
That's just the internet.
You put stuff somewhere, and you have a bunch of servers running all over the world that allow you to see that information wherever you are. And the way that happens is by using cables that go under the sea, or, thanks to Elon, satellites that are orbiting our planet now, Starlink. But for the most part, they operate using a protocol, right? That is the Internet Communication Protocol. And then on top of that is built the TCP IP protocol, which allows individual computers to then communicate with each other based on that. And then on top of TCP IP are the individual web browsing protocols like HTTP and everything else that we know.
Okay,
right?
It's a bunch of stuff that connects all the computers with wires and stuff, and we can all post things and talk to each other. It's great. It's great. That's our internet today. What's the future, Pete? Because it scares me.
Well, to see what the future is, we first got to go back into the past. So I alluded to this, but the internet as it was in the 80s was absolutely, positively a shell of what it is today. Back then, it was only read. You could only read stuff on the internet. You couldn't really post things. You couldn't make amends to the pages. You couldn't do anything really. All you could see was the information itself. So anytime you went on to a browser or any website, it was just article format. It was people posting stuff about whatever they wanted to, research papers, news, just very general read-only access. And then with the advent of search engines and other smaller but very important innovations, we started being able to write to the internet as well. And slowly but surely, people realized that you can make a lot of money off of this. So this is where the conversation of incentive structures comes in. Because people can create stuff on the internet, you can charge for access to those things. And this is a little bit connected to the conversation we had with Zayam a few weeks ago, but essentially, advertising agencies and big companies realize that because you can pay for access to stuff, you can also pay for people's attention. And that meant that the incentives would start aligning around whoever gathered the most attention.
So now everyone's just buying ad space on the internet.
Exactly.
Hooray.
Because the most important things are data on the internet. Your data makes up who you are. Once again, back to that conversation, but you are just a giant collection of data points to whatever company you interact with, like Google, Netflix, Amazon, Spotify, whatever.
Right.
You're nothing more. So using all that data, they can decide how they want to pursue monetizing your attention. So that's Web 2, right? Now, if we take it a step further to define it very loosely, Web 3 no longer monetizes your attention at your expense. It monetizes your attention for your gain. At least that is the very
that's the selling point.
That's the utopian view of how it could be. We don't know, like I said. I mean, I've read up on this stuff so much, and I know everything that's happening right now, but absolutely nobody knows what this will be in 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. So the point is, people are shifting to a creator-first economy. It's literally called the creator economy, right? So that means that you have ownership of your data, you have ownership of your product, and you are no longer a set of data points to companies, but rather you are the custodian of what it is that you post on the internet. And people can directly pay you for it. They don't have to be paying companies with their attention anymore. You understand what I mean?
But can't companies just scrounge up my data anyway, even if it's mine?
Not necessarily.
So they'll pay
Remember,
me for
this has to do with platforms, right? So the reason that your attention is monetized is because you spend the time on a platform.
Yeah.
So let's say YouTube, for instance. They sell you ads, but what if there was a way that people could make money off of their videos just by simply selling it to others? They don't have to necessarily be paying for ads. They can monetize it other ways. It's just the fact that there's a more efficient way to provide the information to people now.
That sounds like that example you gave me sounds like creating a Patreon or something where you don't make money through ad space on your videos. Rather, you make content and ask people for subscriptions or donations to keep the content flowing, which is great. I highly support supporting independent creators versus corporations. It allows them to be independent, but at the same time, there's a reliance on other people, right?
Yeah, but that is essentially how all of this works anyway.
So what makes Web3 different or more special?
Well, let's think about this as well. Patreon had the right idea. They were just using old tech to do it. And because of that, Patreon has become a platform. And so their incentive structure relies on people relying on Patreon so that they can find their content creators and subscribe to those content creators through there. And by that, I mean they pay for it there. But the reality is, if you just want to pay to see that person's content, why would you have to go through a third party? Why can't you just pay the person directly? I mean, think about it. When we trade for goods, we just go, or in an idealistic sense, we want to go straight to the person to buy said good or pay for said service. There's no reason that we should rely on intermediaries.
I see. So Web3 will eliminate middlemen and just put us directly to who we want to support.
That is the big idea. I mean, let's think about why Bitcoin became so popular. It is because you don't have to rely on banks to send value to people, right?
That's true.
So that is the Web3 thesis. That is the idea of what goes on. Now, everything that happens underneath that big umbrella, I'd be honest to say that probably 90, no, not 90. It depends on the way you look at it, right? Because there's the whole aspect of DeFi, there are NFTs, there's the infrastructure layer, which is still being built as well. That is all the computational and sort of middleware type of software being written so that all this stuff can happen. There's also the metaverse. There are so many things. And most of them are not even close, like I said, to what they could be. Most of NFT projects are a scam. I had an enlightening conversation with Mikey about how, and he's totally right on this, that most of crypto is a scam, which is not true because Bitcoin and Ethereum are over or just about half, maybe a little more than half than the entire crypto ecosystem, and that makes up over $1 trillion of capital in our current society. So I don't think that all these people with over $1 trillion are getting scammed. I don't think that you can say that anymore.
As far as
but everything else is, for all intents and purposes, it's all BS.
Yeah, I mean, I read the article you sent me, and I feel like we've said this in the past, but the article basically said don't, when it came to rules for investing, don't invest on something just because it's cheap or if you think you missed out on like the Bitcoin or Ethereum wave, because that's how people lose all their money, is putting in these alternate cryptocurrencies that are all maybe not scams per se, although there are a lot of scam coins out there, but they're not as robust, they're not as thorough, so they're more likely to fail in that regard. So that's a good way of losing all your money. I think it'd be more productive of shoveling your money into the fireplace to keep you warm at night if you want to take those risks. You could be a billionaire tomorrow. You could be dirt poor tomorrow. So just be careful in that regard. The reason Bitcoin and Ethereum were so successful is because Bitcoin really is just that thorough. It's that robust. It really is so self-contained that there's only one way it could fail, and that's if 51% of all computers on Earth were owned by like one guy or one group, which is impossible. That's basically impossible. And the amount of energy it would take to own all those computers and run Bitcoin on it, you would be losing money even if you were able to hack into Bitcoin. So it's...
Keep in mind also, one big thing that people don't understand is, yeah, you could use 51% of all the computational power on that network, but people don't realize that you also need to redo all of the transaction history of the entire current blockchain. Because the way that blockchain works, you already know, is that there is a ledger that all of the computers on the network have to agree upon, right? So 51% of the network needs to agree upon a new fundamental ledger. And in order to catch up, because Bitcoin's been mined for the last 10 years, in order to do that, you would need to remake that entire ledger with 51% of the power in 10 minutes. Because if that doesn't happen, then the next block gets mined. And the original chain that everybody agrees on currently is still the one that is used. So
yeah. Have fun paying for that electricity bill.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. Bitcoin can't necessarily be attacked now. It was always something that was going to thrive as a result of the network effect and increasing decentralization. And at this point, I don't think that governments can really stop it, even if they try to.
They can't stop it. They can try and stop us from using it, but that's a topic for another day. So
it's related. It's related because no, it's very obvious that you can impose a lot of sanctions. You can tax it very highly. I just don't think that it's productive because ultimately a government is. At least we want to believe this, but there are autocracies. Government is ruled by its constituents. They're the ones that elect their representatives. And if those doing the electing are feeling disenfranchised, well then it doesn't matter how much you tax them. You can always just go to a tax shelter or have an offshore bank account or just literally move your family to a different country that is more open to this, what you could call more libertarian view of money.
Well, that would destroy a country if you did that.
Exactly, that's the point. So countries can't really fight this because it's a lose-lose situation, right? When you start incentivizing people to leave, I mean, what are you doing?
But back to Web3. So you said it will help direct consumers and creators and help create a link that doesn't require a middleman to pay for content and stuff. How on earth will Amazon work? Amazon is literally the middleman incarnate, you know?
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. I actually haven't thought about how Amazon fits into this narrative. I do know that if they want to remain... all right, here's another thing. AWS also makes up more than half of the
Websites.
profits of the stock itself soars because of AWS, because so many companies rely on it. So I think that Bezos was really forward thinking in the fact that he understood how important software would be in the future. Mark Andreessen as well. He wrote the article called "Software Will Eat the World." He wrote this in, I think, 09 or 2010. I don't remember. And it's come to pass, undoubtedly. So cloud computing in general is relied on by so many companies. I mean, think about some of the biggest companies. Netflix, one of the biggest companies in the world, relies on AWS, for instance. So maybe they don't need to rely on their middleman distribution network for real-time goods, especially as we move to a more digital economy. We already have, I mean, dude, we've already digitized education to an extent, because if you can take classes in college on Zoom, then you can just about do everything on your computer.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not great, but it can be improved. So my point is, if they cannot maintain their magic physical goods network of distribution, which I don't think that'll happen, but it's possible, then they will most likely pivot to a more infrastructure-based system where their sole focus is AWS. They will drive business because of all of the cloud computing resources they have. Because, dude, Amazon's AWS data centers they're massive, right? AWS happened because of Amazon's needs for data centers. It's actually so funny. They literally created an entire massive business, the most successful cloud computing business, just because of problems they were having internally.
That's how the best problems usually come to pass. You need something, you build it, turns out to be a brilliant idea.
Yeah. So my point is they probably would shift to relying more on that.
All right. I guess obviously we have yet to see the full extent of Web3, just like how the internet, we didn't see the full extent in the 1980s. So will everything be more digitized at that point if it becomes like that?
Yeah. Because think about it. If you can get what you need to get faster and cheaper, and you don't have to rely on more people digitally, then why wouldn't you?
I guess the trick will be to whoever makes it the most accessible, the most easy first, because that I specifically brought up Amazon because I know it's a big company and it's basically a monopoly, but I like it. I like using it. I think that's a better phrasing, because it's just so easy. It really is. Like, so I Google, it's like a book, or I Google some medicine, or I Google like anything, a tennis racket, and it's there. It's right there. I could get whatever I want in like 5 seconds. And even if I can get cheaper versions, which I usually try to, a lot of it is very cheap, which is, it sucks to say, because a lot of mom and dad businesses lose to this business model, unfortunately. But it really is just the ease of access, how easy it is, how it takes like literally less than a minute to find what I want and to order it. It's almost addicting how I used to think like 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I was a child, when I see people obsess over buying stuff at the mall, I'm like, oh, that's stupid. Why would you be like spending so much money and carry like 20 bags? And like, it just seemed like foolish. But now I'm an adult and I'm like, I totally get it. Because when it's so easy, it becomes almost fun, like in a very twisted way. Or I guess fun is the wrong word. It's so appreciated how very satisfyingly easy it is to do something, how trivial it is to do something that seems almost integral as buying stuff. And
yeah, absolutely.
I guess I don't see how Amazon could possibly integrate Web3 into that kind of model. But like you said, the moneymaker for Amazon is them selling their database services, so they might not even need to change anything. But I guess in this situation, you need to create like a hub to be less of a middleman and more of a connection space, like where everyone can like put their stuff, put whatever they're selling or whatever content they're making in a specific location that allows both the users and creators to meet in the same spot. So basically like YouTube and like Amazon, but they themselves don't like profit, or they profit very little from it. They just host it.
Well, that would never happen because at least the Amazon e-commerce marketplace is literally based off of owning Main Street. You know, this is actually, I'm glad you brought it up because Shopify's model is more so owning the individual stores on Main Street rather than Main Street itself. But even then, owning the individual stores still takes away from the people who are putting those stores up and selling, right? Ultimately, I think both business models would tend to fail if the people can own their own stores. They don't have to own the Main Street because the Main Street is just a shared consensus upon where everyone can find their goods. And because it's digital, it's fast and it can be agreed upon fast. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I'm curious to see because this is literally a definition of how Amazon could fail. And I guarantee you there are so many smart people in that company. They're figuring out how to remain relevant in a time where their literal monopoly over the ability to give people access to goods is challenged heavily by this emerging tech. I'm not counting them out, but I think that they're going to need to really put their minds together and figure out how they're going to do it.
I mean, like you said, they own they're the big money makers, the database services, so they could probably just take the hit, so to speak, and still be alive. But I guess how is this going to change how we surf the internet? Will it change much? Will it happen like very subtly, very nonchalantly, or will this be the end of an empire? So stuff like YouTube and Amazon will fall and new things will rise up in the advent of this technology that will take over and take its place.
I don't want to give you a cop-out answer, but I can't tell you for certain because let's think about this. Google, they own YouTube, Amazon, Facebook, the manga companies, as we call them right now. They are here for a reason. They've accrued so much value and provided so much value to people that they will be relevant and they will find a way to survive. Whether or not that is with the new world order, quote unquote, of the internet, I don't know. If they want to remain relevant, they need to pivot in some certain ways. But then also, the very foundations upon their business models being built also become challenged. Because once again, these are massive companies with massive data stores that rely on the incentive structure of the current internet. And if they cannot find ways to make money off of a different incentive structure, one that prioritizes the user over the user's attention, then they won't survive. So I gave you a case in which Amazon could still remain relevant. YouTube, it could very easily die. Because like I said, people just need a place to post their videos. And if people are paying for access to those videos, then you could create a platform, hypothetically, where the videos are sort of sent straight to individuals. And yeah, we do have iMessage created by Apple, but that's once again the owner of Main Street analogy there, because the blue text bubble will only appear to users of Apple. As soon as you receive that green text bubble, everybody knows this feeling. It's the worst thing on earth because you just hate to see that green text bubble. So, like I said, this is why I say I know absolutely nothing, and no one else can really say either. That is, I think, the most important part about this. Ignorance is definitely something that you need to accept when there is new tech like this. But yeah, anyways, going back to what you asked, there is a very big difference in how companies nowadays are run versus how they could be run in 15 to 20 years. And that is solely because every individual will have the power to own what it is that they're creating for other people to consume. It could be artists, it could be musicians, it could be it could be a yoga instructor, it could be anybody.
So I guess this would mean, if this is to take off, this would be the end of centralized giants, so to speak, because I'm trying to think about this. If I were to create a different YouTube and call it Web3 Tube, or I'm thinking, if that was a hub, if I created that and I own the website, I wouldn't be able to make money because or I guess I could charge like a small transaction fee, but that would just make it more like Patreon and less like Web3. So I guess in this situation, and if that were to take off, if my like Web3 tube took off, YouTube would, I don't know if it would die right away, but like if this hypothetical website were to take off, they definitely would take a hit, and content creators will definitely start making more money, especially smaller level creators, and it could garner an audience, and just eventually no one will want to deal with YouTube because they take such a significant portion of your money away from you versus getting 100% of the money or 99% of the money they make from you. But I guess in this situation, what's stopping YouTube from... I guess this is an example of how competition just really brings out the best in us, is because if this were to happen, YouTube could create a better model where now they actually give their content creators like the majority hold of their revenue from the advertisements. And now you'll have two different models competing against each other, and whichever one the consumers deem is the best, that is the one that will live.
Yeah, that's totally true. And to be honest, I think that is one way that YouTube will have, that is a path they have to take in order to stay relevant. Because otherwise, there's absolutely no reason, like you said, for people to post on YouTube if they could be making more money somewhere else. You know, and yeah, YouTube has the best network effect. Everybody uses it. Their algorithms are perfectly fine-tuned to figure out what everybody wants to watch. But it doesn't matter if the one incentive in the end that people are going there for, people that are posting there for, which is monetary compensation, if that is not enough, because the whole point, once again, is for you to own your own data. And if you could do that, then there's absolutely no way for another place that is owning your data. They can't really stop it. That's the one thing that a lot of people don't understand. I think I've said it several times to you, but data is the one thing that actually matters nowadays. That is the most valuable part. And data is just an abstraction of energy, right? It's just the digitized form of it. So we are literally a society that relies on energy for everything. Every cash flow, every incentive structure, every little thing that we do is some abstraction of energy. I mean, dude, think about our monetary system. It's literally called the petrodollar system. Gas prices right now, $4 a gallon. When was the last time we saw that? I feel like it was
$5
08,
in California. It's great.
$5 in California. Yeah, exactly. You know, so we have found a way to take away all of the middlemen. Right? And granted, all this stuff gets paid as you go, but it also gets built as you go as well. This isn't stuff that's going to happen in 1 week, right?
Of course.
I know that you asked earlier about how things will be consumed, and this is where Zuck's view of the metaverse kind of comes into play, but not really. The most important part about all of this stuff to work is there needs to be some kind of securitization layer. And that is what Ethereum is doing. So it graduated from the idea of just being a blockchain that allows a lot of stuff to be built on it to becoming the place that allows everything to be built on it. And what I mean by that is value accrual in a Web3 economy doesn't necessarily go to the applications, right? It goes to the protocols. In this case, Ethereum becomes a protocol, right? if we look at Web 2, TCP/IP, ICP, all these things on which some of the greatest technology in the world has been built on, they don't make that much money. It is the applications themselves that accrue all the value, like Google, Facebook, YouTube, all these things.
Right.
But now you have things that focus on value creation rather than value capture. And that is what generates all of the liquidity and all of the flow and everything that gets you to spend more money to drive more people consuming what it is you have to provide. It's a little bit of it's a very abstract way to look at it because it's so much more different than what we know right now, like I said. It's based on this thing called fat protocol thesis and also base plate thesis. So essentially, imagine Ethereum is like a base plate upon which everything has to be built on top, like a Lego tower, right? It's the base Lego plate, and then everything else gets built on top of it. Technically, you could use the same analogy for the current web, but it doesn't necessarily have the same, not philosophy. It doesn't have the same behavior, so to speak. Yes, everything is built on top of the internet and on top of these protocols, but the value is retained by the applications more so than the protocol itself. Does it make sense?
Kind of.
So, in any case, the way that this meta or this narrative plays out is the places that can build with the idea of value creation in mind. Those are the places where we see the most user growth, the biggest economies, the best optionality as well. That is how we create digital economies, right? You want to be the place where everyone feels like they have the best shot to make something.
Right. But you also want to make it easy to do, like to make it the ease of access for the people as easy. Because on YouTube and Amazon, like I said, it's so easy to use. If you make it cumbersome or like really hard, or you need like a really high knowledge set to do it, people are going to be less inclined to do it. So there really is going to have to be an effort, not only for the usefulness of this technology, but the usability, so that like people actually were like, oh, I get it, I can do this. Because if that's missing, doesn't matter how brilliant it's going to be.
Yeah, that's true. So that's why I say ETH is handling that problem right now, because they're becoming not only the base plate, but they are also becoming the place where you can rely on all of the data itself to be stored and verifiable, essentially just the quote unquote hub. But once again, this hub is decentralized, right? So no one owns it, but everyone can verify and validate that it is true, that everything that's on it.
Nice.
So that's why a lot of people believe in Ethereum, because it is basically, ETH is Web3, you know? And yeah, the future is multi-chain, quote unquote. There's the Avalanche chain, there is Solana, there's the Cosmos ecosystem, which is really interesting as well. But all these things, they're competing with something that's been out for already 5 years, or no, technically since 2014. And they are the New York City of this analogy. You know, they are far ahead of everyone. They've been developing for a lot longer. They have the biggest network effects. They have the most liquidity. And I mean, dude, NFTs, for instance, caused Ethereum to scale tenfold in the last bull run, right? So
I guess that's one good use for them.
Well, here's the thing. I know I talked about this earlier. NFTs, though, in their current state, I think they're just nothing like what they could be. Because there are two ideas of NFTs, right? There's the ones that we see right now. Those are non-fungible and transferable. And that typically comes in the form of artwork or collectibles, right? So that these Bored Apes or these CryptoPunks, all the pictures of rocks that go for hundreds of thousands of dollars, you can just put that on a marketplace and sell it to people. And it's one of one, but it has a lot of value, and people think so because collectors. I personally am not an art collector, so I would never buy NFTs just to have them.
It sounds
it's digital clout, but for me, I don't need that, you know?
It sounds like a breeding ground for like money laundering and that kind of thing.
Well, this is interesting that you bring that up, because I think money laundering to an extent will always exist in the human condition, because people always want to do illicit activities. Right. It's just that this brings that to the forefront now. Just because you don't know who's doing the money laundering doesn't mean that it's not happening. So if anything, this tech literally shows that it's happening now, whereas the only implicit knowledge that we have of money laundering is the fact that we catch people doing it. Right? We just know not to be naive and see it happen, but it's not like we know it's happening. It's not like you can see someone literally selling guns somewhere and, you know, they smuggle $1 million into a country as a result.
Of course, but like the thing is with traditional money laundering with paintings is like if I bought the Mona Lisa, right? I and anyone who appreciates art would agree the Mona Lisa is one of a kind. It's worth how much it costs. Mm-hmm. This ape, this like picture of a monkey that's been like color changed or has a hat on and that's being memed to heck and back on the internet is, as artistically speaking, is worthless, which... And I think I read somewhere that the point of why so many NFTs are ugly and really like not appealing is because you don't want. It's not about the art. It's about the ownership. It's about like I have this, and on the one hand, I can see like a point to that, but unlike cryptocurrencies, which actually offer a breeding ground for the future, NFTs in that regard of just like owning something just to own it is, I don't want to say stupid, but I'm like 95% leaning towards it's stupid. The only examples I can think of with NFTs that make sense, but I still kind of look at it as a step backwards, is if artists or people who produce products, whether it's music, whether it's video games, whether it's this, is if you create a code, an NFT code, that because it's so secure because of blockchain technology, and you distribute it like 30,000 copies or 1 million copies or like that. Because as like a retro game collector, the only way you can play games by legal means would be having to like find someone selling a physical game and then like buying it and then buying the console and playing it, which is very expensive and very cumbersome. With NFTs, you could have like a digital version of that, which improves the ease of access tremendously and can also maybe have a transaction fee for the original creators. The same goes with music. The problem is you already have digital marketplaces where you have infinite copies, so to speak. Like, I could buy a game today, and 5 years later, if the marketplace is still up and the product is still up, I could still buy it. You know, there's no limit to the number of things you can buy. So in this regard, I can see the benefit of the NFT, but I can also see like it being a step backwards as far as the consumer is concerned. Because like I'm imagining Spotify, I pay a subscription and I can listen to all the music, basically all the music in the world for free. After, you know, the subscription, which is like $5. I hate Spotify, by the way. I've never paid a subscription for them. But that's beside the point. The point is, if you subscribe to them, you can listen to music forever. I feel like NFTs would ruin that ease of access of just having accessibility to all the music in the world.
Let me calmly destroy you right now.
Okay.
So, no, I'm joking. But what you're intuiting right now is exactly why I think NFTs actually are generational. Literally like the thing I sent you, right? They are very much going to be a big influence in the future. Like I said, I understand why collectibles are valued so highly. And to be totally honest, if you read the thing, you understand as well that art is valued because people know you have it. There's no other basis for that. However, What really makes them important is the utility generated by them. So what this means is, and I full disclosure, I do own NFTs, but not because I think that I look cool by having them. They actually were me trying to experiment with the idea of utility created. So for instance, one of them was part of this community, I think Apex Optimizer or something like that. And it's basically a health club. It's a fitness club that they created, and they have a website, an online forum where they connect with other health brands and fitness brands and things. And if you hold this NFT, then you get better deals on certain affiliate brands that they're partnered with. So that idea of utility created by holding is where I think the real value lies. Let me abstract it for you. Let's say you held an NFT to get into a club, right? So you don't have to pay cover. You just have this ticket that works. But then you want to go into the VIP room, right? Or let's take away the holding one to get in even. Let's just say you got in, but you need or you want access to that VIP room. And the only way to do so is by holding the NFT that they give you. Because right now, the way that it works is you got to know somebody. You got to know the bartender. You got to know a promoter. You got to finagle your way through or pay a huge fee up front, right? So the idea is if you hold the said NFT, this one of one or this non-fungible but transferable piece of digital value, then you have more access to certain things, or you have opportunities to save your value for something else. So that's where this really becomes important, and that's why people built communities around this. It's not because of collectible art, man. I think that is such a red herring in the entire ecosystem that everybody's focused on that. And yeah, NFTs are billions of dollars have been
robbed, stolen,
not robbed. Billions of dollars have been
swindled,
put into the market for NFTs. But I think that once people realize that these can be used to generate utility for others, that number goes up 2 orders of magnitude easily.
I guess we'll have to wait and see until the utilitarian NFT comes around.
Well, that's a thing about technology as well. I think it tends towards utilitarianism because when you think about it, over time, tech is very deflationary from a monetary policy perspective, right? The only reason that these companies are consistently growing is because of inflation. But if we take away all the time needed to do something, if we do something more efficiently because of technology, then why are things growing in value? Right? You need less time to do it. It absolutely makes no sense to me. I started listening to this one guy. Totally forget his name. Last name is Booth. Jeff Booth maybe. And he made the argument that tech is deflationary. And the point is that everything in these ecosystems acts to increase our efficiency, gives us more time to do other things, and maximizes the utility we gain. So yeah, I don't buy it that a lot of the stuff that we create naturally tends to value creation. I think it just tends towards a more usability, more utility for the individual consumer.
I mean, that's everything that's been made in history either lasted or was improved upon, in which case it was needed or desired, or it died off and was never seen again because it wasn't worth anything. So I feel like in that regard, it's clear to see that technology is based on utilization. It's based on the utility it provides, because if it doesn't provide you usefulness, like if you can't use it for something important, or if it doesn't make you like smile or happy, then who cares? Why should it exist?
It has absolutely no value then. So yeah, that's my take on it. But here's another side to NFTs as well. And this was just brought up a couple of months ago. I read an article by one of the creators of Ethereum, Vitalik, and he was talking about non-fungible, non-transferable NFTs. You could say soul-bound NFTs for short. I think I sent you it a few months ago as well when I read it. But basically, you can have something that you only receive and you can't send it to people. Like this, you have verifiable data that shows that it belongs to you, but you also, if you tried to send it to someone, it wouldn't have the same value. So for instance, let's think of a real world abstraction of that, like a college degree, or proof that you took a course, or attended an event, or that you did something that only you as a person were able to do. That's what it means to be soul bound. So that is a huge application that people have completely overlooked, and they're coming for sure, because we're going to need some digital verification of things that are soul bound as well. I just gave you a few examples of what that could look like, but to be honest, I'm sure there are way more ways that they can apply as well.
I mean, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm trying to think, like, I guess you could forge a birth certificate or a degree. So doing it this way would make it a lot more robust, a lot more secure. But at the same time, I don't think anyone wants my birth certificate. Like, what are they going to do with it,
Yeah, it may not be your birth certificate. I mean, you could, for some people may want it for identity fraud, but some people may also want your college diploma.
I guess, can NFTs evolve? Like, can you add something to an NFT? Or is it...
What do you mean?
Because I'm like thinking, like, what if you had like virtual like identification like on the blockchain? So like, because you're describing the college degree and how it's soul bound to me. There's only one degree from Boston University with my name on it.
Mm-hmm.
From the time you get it. So what if you could like add more stuff to that, like maybe your criminal record, maybe your a profile picture, maybe like turn NFTs into like almost social media accounts or like human accounts to like keep track of all your like really important information and just have it readily available in a very secure fashion.
Well, that is where we are going. And that is something that I think governments will start implementing, as a matter of fact. But that's why I say they can't really escape this. They have to join.
It also seems kind of scary though, because like, I don't know. I guess the one thing I'm afraid of is if everything is in one location. I don't know NFTs well enough, the technology behind NFTs. I'm more familiar with regular blockchain and Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I don't know how secure NFTs are. Like, if I do have a soul-bound NFT with all my information on it, can someone steal it and commit identity fraud with it?
Well, it depends on the securitization of it. As in, it depends on the chain that validates your NFT's existence. And if it's Ethereum, given the current state of this thing, like I said, it's a $400 billion protocol. Probably not.
The thing is, like, as far as like identity fraud goes, you don't want to probably not. You want to absolutely not. You know what I'm saying?
I say probably not because this is emerging tech, but let's say I'd be willing to put 99 of my 100 eggs in the basket that it won't happen, only because tech is tech. There will be failures along the way. We don't know what those failures will be, but I can tell you for certain that right now that they are ahead of the game, and so because of that, they already anticipate the ways in which these things can be rectified. So I'm not trying to sound like what people on Twitter say, ETH maxi, but I'm just telling you at face value, this is the problems they are solving, and they are ahead of everybody doing it. So they seemingly have their finger on the pulse, and they know what they need to do to make sure that things don't get out of hand or lose control. Because you've heard of the blockchain trilemma. It's scalability, decentralization, and security.
Right.
And it's one of the three. When you try to solve one of them, one or the other two tend to take a hit, and it's a very difficult problem to keep in mind. So yeah, man, you bring up a good point, and we can't know for sure because this stuff is literally in its infancy.
I guess that's what makes it exciting, but
Yeah.
you know, we'll keep each other posted, and we'll keep you, our lovely audience, posted on all the wonders of and horrors of the future technology.
I mean, do you have any other questions? Because, like I said, Web3 it's a big rabbit hole that everyone, like I said, no one really knows where it's going. It is the future, undoubtedly, and it will happen whether we like it or not. It's just gonna take time.
I can't think of any questions right off the bat, but I'm 1,000% confident we're gonna talk about this again real soon.
Yeah, we'll probably bring Mikey on again eventually.
Yeah, Mikey and Ethan,
because he's got some great thoughts. So
I can't wait. But until then, to all the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone and everything in between, as always, it's nice to talk to you, Pete.
Yes, absolutely. And all I have to say is stay Web3 and stay positive.